Welcome to Filmfest Bremen in cooperation with the Indie Film Talk. My name is Christoph Dobic and today we are talking about the movie Ladies of Steel by Pamela Tola, and Pamela, writer and director, is here with me. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Your movie starts out as kind of a road movie, but it has a lot of twists and turns and surprises and a really unique voice. And one of the unique factors about the movie is the cast of protagonists. You have three elderly women as your stars. When did you decide that you want to tell the story about emancipation and empowerment from this age group?
It all started like maybe 10 years ago. And basically because I was so afraid of getting old. And I never saw pictures like which could empower me. And all those images that I had about getting old was very full of fear and full of loneliness and isolation and that kind of stuff. And it was kind of awful to think that I have to go like towards that kind of image what I had in my mind, and that was something what kind of disturbed me a lot. And I also remember that when I was young and I was studying acting in theater school, my teachers told me that when you are 40 there is no roles for you anymore, because there is basically no roles for older women. And that was kind of awful also, and I was thinking that that can't be possible. I have to do something, and I wanted to make a film where I can show older women as a whole being, an active human being who still has desires and dreams and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and although these women are your protagonists, there are three generations of mothers and daughters and children. And especially your old protagonists, they connect through the generations and they connect with their past. One of the very early twists is that one of these old women finds out that, or rediscovers, reconnects that she had a past as a very rebellious, young, uproaring feminist. Was this something that was interesting for you as a writer, that you thought, okay, well, all these old people who are quote-unquote housewives today, they were there in the 60s and 70s, they were on demonstrations and they had a fire in them that's hard to see nowadays.
Yeah, I think it's something, but I think it's about those lies what we tell to ourselves and how we remember our past. Because I think you kind of remember what you want to remember. And it's very interesting how sisters or siblings, how they remember things differently. And I think that's very important theme, that who you think you are, and are you willing to see yourself or see your life as it is, or are you trying to just make some kind of a safe place for you, and so you don't have to do changes, you don't have to make big decisions and start again, kind of.
And this is one of the very interesting aspects of your movie, that we're not just running away from things, but we reconnecting with the person we are, we discover ourselves again. And in the center, these three women, these terrific actresses. Can you tell me a little bit about this? You said the film industry in general and the film industry in your country as well doesn't have a real place for older women actors. How did you find these three and how did you work with them?
Yeah, and first I was very kind of I was thinking that how could I tell a story about older women? I was 30 something, I wasn't so old, but then I realized that it's not all about the age or gender. It's about that kind of themes that I think we can all relate. And I was then visiting in these kind of old older houses or homes, places for older people, and also talking with them about their feelings, how they are spending their time now. And then 2 years before we started to shoot, we made this kind of short demo, and then I found two of these main characters, and we started to read the text and also talked a lot about the text. And I think they gave me so much, because I really don't know how it's to be that age. And something very interesting was that they all talked so much about that they feel kind of that they are the same young person that they were in some moments, and that was something I could totally relate in, and I was thinking that was giving me more like support to that road, that it's not about the age, it's something what is very common for everyone, that there's these questions like what is my life and how I want to spend my time, and what do I really want to do in my life, like finding yourself.
Yeah. And your screenplay is full of interesting scenes and surprises. We have these three women not only go on a road trip, we have them get drunk, we have them having a party, we have them have sex with other people. Was there ever a scene before you approached these actresses where you thought, oh, I don't know if they like it, or this is kind of dangerous, and if you are here is something we have to work really hard about?
Yes, there was a lot that kind of scenes, and I was kind of afraid that I don't know how they will like react when they really read the text and see what I'm like planning for them. But then I think the biggest thing was that we were talking so much, and I was trying to tell them why I really want to make a movie like this, and why it's so important to show women this way, and especially older women, because that's something we haven't seen. And when I was writing the text, I was like feeling that, no, I can't, this is like, I'm feeling ashamed by myself. And then I was thinking that, okay, if I'm feeling ashamed, I don't want to show this, I don't want to do it. Maybe that's something I really want to do, I really need to do, because we have to do things that we kind of even don't want to see. I think there is something very taboo things.
Yeah, it is unusual, of course, and we're not used to seeing it in many movies, just as you say. And not only the cast of characters, but the characters themselves, they really shine in the movie. You have these three people who are the engine of the story, who are just the protagonist from start to finish. And you have to give everyone specific personalities. They have to play off each other. They have to be dramatic and comedic. They have to have common moments. I remember when they're in a gas station and get drunk together, but then they have to go on their separate journeys as well. So how did you construct these characters? What was your idea? How they could play off each other? And how much did you re-evolve them when your actresses came into play?
Yeah, I think the characters were quite ready in the script, but I wanted to mix so that those actors, I wanted to give them different role that kind of didn't fit for them. So that made it very interesting, because they had to kind of do something very against themselves. And it gave something very special for the dynamic, what they had. And of course we were like practicing, having rehearsals, and many things happened after they all came in. But yeah, I was thinking that they have all of them have very specific place in the story, and they are kind of the part of the Inkeris like personality or something, because in somehow, even though one of the sisters is very kind of mean, I think she has very important role, like trying to push her sister, kind of saying something very provocative to the main character, and also the other sister, who's very like not willing to do anything, not very afraid of going anywhere, and that's another part kind of in Inkeri. So for me, it was very clear that I want to kind of separate things very like clearly. Yeah.
Yeah, it really works. Like, you feel that Inkeri, we start the movie with her. Her deed is a big dilemma of the movie. She has the longest past. But as you say, the two others are like polar opposites that drag her into different directions and push her forward by this. And talking about the story, I was really impressed how you managed to combine your story with important themes. Like, we go to so many places. We are starting with things like gaslighting and female academia. We're talking about women's rights, about sexuality, and so on and so forth. Like, you cover so many bases of very actual and very recent topics, and they still fit perfectly in the story. How did your writing process go on this point? Did you say, okay, there are these and these topics I have to tackle, and I write scenes that fit them because it's a road movie, I can write as many scenes I want? Or was it the other way around, that you have an idea of scenes and of stations and you say, okay, here fits this and here fits the other thing?
That's a very good question. I think part of those themes and the storylines, they came kind of organically, because I think most of the time I write kind of intuitively, that I just like start to write and I feel that those characters kind of start to tell the story for me, and I think I had those themes, and then the kind of the road movie was something that I was kind of building there, that I need to put them there, and I really wanted to use also those like cliches from the road movies and movies what we have already seen, because there is a lot of scenes where we kind of recognize that, oh, this is this kind of scene, but then it's kind of weird or even funny or absurd because they are so old women, and we haven't get used to like, we haven't seen that kind of things, that they basically doesn't even do something very hilarious. They just do what the others do, but that's they are not in the right place, kind of, and that's something very interesting. That why it's so funny that old woman like pukes. We see puking people everywhere and in the films, and but that's right. Something. Okay, oh, why? I haven't seen that.
Yeah, and now you said it is a really clever move that you show all of them at first in apartments, and in apartments that really look like old people apartments, like we imagine them, and after that we go into the car and all of a sudden they already look out of place, because they know, okay, these are old women and we know how they live, and as soon as they put them in the car, you're absolutely right, it is a humoristic premise by itself. Another theme that goes through the movie is the theme of life and death, where it's a running gag, more or less, that people don't remember who of their friends is already dead and who's not, and they are divided on people who are alive at the moment. Sometimes people surprisingly die, sometimes people come back from the dead, and you even pose the question, are we living just because we are alive? Is it kind of dead in all our lives when we just more or less kill our past self? Did you do, according to these aspects of age, of loss, you said you had your own fears already, was there some specific research that were into this topic, like how to deal with things like trauma, with your past life, or even with loss and death of people you are near?
That theme is very important for me, and I think it's when you are old, that's kind of reality, that someone next to you dies, and you have to deal with that thing, that you don't have so much time anymore. And I think basically we all have that kind of like feeling inside us, and that's really something I could relate, and I have myself. My parents died when I was a kid, so like dying and waiting somebody's dying. That theme is so like close to me, and I think it's very not easy, but kind of. I think, of course, I want to write about that theme and try to like solve kind of those thoughts I have in myself, and also like find the peace with the fear of dying and getting old, because I think there is the fear of death basically underneath the fear of getting old or something like that, fear of living even.
Yeah. And if the theme is so close to you, and we all have experienced death in our life, and it is something that you have to be careful about how you write. Is it something that comes to you when you write a comedy? Like, are there points where you say, okay, well, here is somebody who's killed by a frying pan, and of course it's kind of a joke, and here is a funny dialogue, but it is a serious topic, of course. So do your own emotions kind of hinder the comedy, or can you just manage it fine?
I think comedy and humor is very like good ways to. They help to deal with very bad and very like dramatic things, and I think it's more easy to even watch films or stories if they are not so like dramatic and awful, because the topics are very awful, and we understand that dying is very sad for people like normally, and I don't like to make films or tell stories where I just push like shit on the people's face and look that awful thing or awful like things what happens to everyone. I wanted to little bit give them like a space, and when you can laugh, then I think you are able to even feel more. But it's not like a feeling that someone is pushing towards you something that you're not ready to kind of deal.
I would like to talk about some technical aspects of the movie as well, because apart from the acting, the movie looks terrific too. And there are some scenes where we talk about memory and where we get a little surreal. We can look into the heads of people. We've got dreams and flashbacks. There is especially one scene in the movie in a hospital where some person is about to die, another comes surprisingly back, and the music goes wild. Reality, dreams, imaginations mixed together. The lights are post-apocalyptic more or less, and it all seems really over the top and very dramatic in a movie that's otherwise very grounded. So why did you decide that these moments of surrealism, of expressionism, of memory and of subjective ideas have to be in your movie?
Yeah, I think it's, for me, it's very, I like mixing things and using opposites. Like if there's a lot of, like grounded scenes and for me, I don't know, it's something that, because things are never just one way. Life is not so black and white. And I think sometimes I need to like shake things and show something that gives you space from the reality kind of. And I think we live in our heads, and in our heads happens so much. And it's not about what actually is happening now. It's so much about what has happened to you before, and how your images and like kind of your thoughts and how your brains and your kind of body change things and remember things. And sees things. It's so different. So it's very hard to show like this main character's point of view if I can't show something more, that there is some process going on, what is not so logic.
I see. There are some adjectives that came to me while watching your movie were like, oh, this is new, this is fresh, this is surprising. And just like these scenes are like, oh, well, I haven't expected that, but that's nice, it fits, and it gives me a new attention as an audience member. And one thing I recognize is that the longer the film goes on, the more you subvert specific tropes in movies and storytelling devices. Like, especially during the end, there seems to be kind of a classical love story, and there's more than one moment where you build up to something. Here is a beautiful moment, the music comes up, and all of a sudden something completely different happens in the scene. How important was it for you to play with these expectations, to go to a cliche and then just break it?
Yeah, it was very important, I think. And because it's very hard for me to watch films which are like too naive and kind of, I don't know if I'm a little bit allergic like for romantic things. And also I like disturbing myself and also like adding that kind of things in my movies, because then I think people start to kind of question things, and we have used to see movies that goes that way, so we are so like we start to like expect things, and I think that's how we do in life also. We are like going in one way, and we think we know everything, we know what happens, we know what you say and what I say, and then something suddenly happens and we are like, oh, what is this, what is this, I didn't know that this was coming. And that's kind of, I think it's more realistic kind of than absurd that or something weird. Do you get what I mean?
I get what you mean. Yeah, it's stranger than fiction, kind of like this. This is how life works for us, and when you have to construct these moments. Like, also, it seems very familiar. It seems very lifelike. Still, you are the director. Your instinct has to be okay. How do I put it in a movie, and especially how do I find the sweet spot? Is there a method you had, or maybe a feedback loop when you said, okay, here is this moment, here is this cliche I want to break, and on the one hand, it has to be played out long enough that people believe it, but on the other hand, it can't go so long that it kind of kills the momentum, it kills the movie. So there is a very specific timing how you pump your cliches and how you leave the air. Is there?
Yeah, I think it's a lot so that I work with my own like emotions, and when I feel very like, oh, this is too much, this is like, I feel ashamed, I know that, okay, now I'm going in the right way, and when I can then like break it, then it's very like, it releases that kind of emotion inside of myself. So I trust a lot of in my instincts and my emotions, and I try to kind of push myself even like, can I go there? When I write it, I'm like, I don't want to do this. This is awful. And then then I will do it. I have to do it. I have to like push myself there and try to like build it so beautifully and so like perfectly that I feel very ashamed, kind of.
Yeah. And is there some specific reaction from the audience? You had your screening of the movie here in the Filmfest Bremen, you screened it some other time. And for me, it is always when I kind of fall into the trap where I go with the cliche and then it's broken, that I'm like, oh, fuck, and what the hell happened? That I have a very strong and loud reaction to it. Do you feel that there are moments, or that is there a specific moment in the movie where your audience has just the reaction you wanted to, where you see the break happening in the audience?
Yeah, there is some moments where almost every time like people laugh. But when I made this movie, I really didn't wanted to force it to be funny. because I always think that the story has to be like so that you don't have to laugh at all. You can watch the movie and you will get the story, and that's the most important thing. And I think the black comedy, black humor is something what I really like. And then it's not about being very funny or trying to make some funny like moments. I just like put those characters in that kind of situations that they feel that there is a lot of pressure or it's uncomfortable for them, and that's something I think people they like recognize that this is so embarrassing or so awful. Now what happens when they have to be in that kind of moment, and I think it's because they kind of recognize those kind of moments from their own like experience, so it starts to be kind of funny because you're like oh my god, that's awful.
And I think it is a movie that has just so many moments that are different, that are sometimes surprising, sometimes heartfelt, sometimes very funny, that the audience will have so many different reactions. Like for me, and I try not to spoil everything, but for me it was the midpoint of the movie. We cut to the dead husband and the cats are coming, and I was like, oh no, now there is a scene where cats are eating a dead body and I don't know if I want to see it. And suddenly the scene goes in another direction, and I knew I already liked this movie and was on board, but from this point it did some things that I didn't expect at all, and I could feel myself shuffling in front of my seat and be like, I want to know where this goes. So it is a beautiful movie full of very genuine cinematic moments, I guess. The almost last question about the movie before we talk a little bit about what's in your future is about these cliches and the subversion of ideas as well. Another moment where you kind of play with movie conventions is where somebody gives a big speech in the end, and again we have the music, and then they get cut short, and you go into the different direction. The ending is not, as some would assume, a big speech, but it's a small and quiet moment. It's a whispered moment where we don't get big life lessons, and again you find your own language without going to the big movie cliches. Will this be something that we find in your next movies as well? Like, is it impossible for you ever to put a speech in your movie because you already showed, well, speech are kind of, it's not the thing I do. Is it impossible to have like a dramatic, melodramatic love story because you already kind of tore it down in this movie? So can you go further? Can you subvert even more cliches, or will subverting the cliches become its own cliche maybe in the end?
Yeah, that's a very good question also. But I think there is many themes that I really like, and I think there is some familiar things in my other works too. I think, and definitely I will have speeches and every cliches. I think because that's something I think we kind of repeat. Some kind of things in our lives also. We are like eating, and then we are talking, and then we're having like parties, and we are driving our cars, and that's something we just do it and do it and do it, and we have like millions of versions how to show it. And I like to kind of make a familiar scene, but put it in a different location, or kind of mix something, or put something out of order. And then you can kind of use the same cliches, but you just twist it somehow. So I don't know. Maybe I will use all of my cliches in every movie, but definitely I think this disturbing and trying to first like make normalize kind of normalized scenes or normalized storylines or something like that, and then disturb it. I think that's something very important, not important, but just something what I find myself doing a lot.
Yeah. And again, it's something where like the movie and the reception of the movie just work together perfectly. We have a film about a woman who starts questioning what her life should be, just because she was living it so long in the same motions and by the same cliches. At the same part, you're having an audience with movie memories, with memories of movie cliches, and you're kind of disturbing their life and their viewing habits as well by showing them this film. So the last question for me, we already took a short look in your future, and that there might be a speech in your next movie or maybe not, but what is in store for your next? What are you working on right now?
Oh yes, I last year went so that I was making my next movie, and we shot it in Finland already, and it's very intense story about friendship, but kind of a little bit toxic friendship between two women, like maybe at my age, 40 something, and yeah, that's very interesting because there is some similar topics, but I think it's even more. It's more not dramatic, but maybe more serious. I think a little bit more serious.
Yeah. Okay, I'm really interesting whenever a director goes in a different mood and shifts from comedy to drama or back, or just turns around these ingredients. It's really exciting for me, and I'm looking forward to see this film. And for now, thank you for showing us Ladies of Steel, and thank you for the conversation.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here.
And if you want to take a look at Ladies of Steel, you can do it at Filmfest Bremen in the category Humor and Satire, and of course online until May the 1st.